Hi there Star Wars collectors, and welcome to another Bossk Bounty video. Welcome to episode 94 of Ask Bossk Bounty. This is the weekly series where you ask me questions in the comment section below, and each week I do my very best to answer them for you. So if you do have a question for next week's episode, please leave it in the comment section below and hopefully you'll be featured next week. I want to say a big thank you to everybody that watched my Vintage Collection Slave 1 commercial in the style of vintage Kenner Star Wars. I had really good fun doing that video with my son. So if you haven't checked that video out, it's only like 40 seconds long or whatever. I'll leave a link in the description below. But thanks to everyone that has watched it so far. And as always, if you happen to enjoy this video, don't forget to drop a like on the video. It really does help the video and the channel. Thank you so much for that. And let's get straight on to the first question of the week. Just Capster says, awesome video, Bossk, like always. Here is the question for next week. With the way the Vintage Collection has been hitting shelves, with the delays, etc., when do you predict that the IG-11 will hit shelves? And will we be able to order them online like at Entertainment Earth? So yes, you will be able to get IG-11 in store and online stores, Entertainment Earth, all that kind of thing. He is included in a normal wave of figures. He's going to be with Lando Calrissian and Tebow, and currently an unnamed figure, which we all kind of know who it's going to be. Now we do have the Emperor coming up in the Throne Room set for PulseCon. Now PulseCon's not going to be on until October the 22nd, I think it is. So that PulseCon exclusive with the Throne set is not going to be available until after the event, which means the wave that could potentially include the Emperor will not be available until after PulseCon as well, which is a bit of a shame. I did think that we may be getting that wave in September time, but it looks like because of the character that it involves and includes in that wave that we won't be getting it until after PulseCon. I mean, you can't even pre-order it yet. But when you can, don't worry, it will be at all normal retailers. Joe Christopher says, question for next week, why do you think we haven't got a blurg or any creatures yet? It seems it's all about the figures with a few vehicles and no creatures. Blurg, Mudhorn, etc. It is a bit unfortunate that we don't have any creatures, as you mentioned, in the Vintage Collection at the moment. Blurg being the standout one, as he's in The Mandalorian, and we kind of need that creature. I kind of think when it comes to creatures that Hasbro, I don't know, maybe they consider them a risk at this point. The Vintage Collection is coming back strong, as we know. It's been much better this year than it was last year. We're getting a few play sets. The lack of vehicles is a bit disappointing. But when it comes to creatures, especially the Blurg, it will involve an all-new sculpt, all new tooling costs. So I guess you've got to ask yourself how much you'll be willing to pay for a Blurg. I don't really know how much the tooling costs for one would cost, but I would imagine that it would be quite a lot. And then would they ever be able to use that sculpt again? So all of those sorts of things come into it. But let me know in the comment section below how much you would be prepared to pay for a Vintage Collection Blurg. The Donut Van. That's a good name. I like that one. Hey Bossk, question for next week. Since we're getting Barriss Offee and other Clone Wars characters re-released on new cards, what do you think the chances are that we'll see other Clone Wars characters that haven't been released yet in the Vintage Collection, such as Asajj Ventress and Cad Bane? I definitely think it's more likely than it was, say, a year ago. I think the Clone Wars is very popular with people that like the Vintage Collection. I think they were quite happy with the way that the ARC Troopers went down, and I'm sure the Maul and Ahsoka are going to be popular figures. I think Cad Bane, more than Asajj Ventress, is one that I would put my hat on. If I was going to say next year, if they bring out any more Clone Wars figures, I would say Cad Bane, purely because he was also in the Bad Batch, so I can see them doing that. He's a popular character, why not? GA says, I'm very much looking forward to your Finish the 96 series, BB. Yep, that is coming, don't you worry, I'm working on that as we speak. My last count came out with something like 25 to 30 of the original 96 yet to be released in the official Vintage Collection. So the question for next week, would you like to see Hasbro do Hammerhead, Walrus Man, original card art, Blue Snaggletooth and Greedo in their original Sears Cantina set colours as part of the Vintage Collection? Kind of like what they did with VCP01 Forlorn and VCP02 Zuckuss. Thanks as always. So if anyone doesn't know what GA is referring to with the Forlorn and Zuckuss, it's this pack here. It was the Celebration 5 exclusive where we essentially got Forlorn and Zuckuss with the names the correct way round or incorrect way round, whichever you think. And these two figures are foil chase cards, and they're done in the colour styles of the original Kenner figures. So it's like a throwback, which was pretty cool. So would we ever get the Sears set with these four in the same way? I think it would be a pretty cool exclusive for them to do, a convention exclusive, I think. I don't think it would work in like the main line or as other figures within the line, but definitely as an exclusive, I could see them doing that. I think it would be pretty awesome, don't you? I mean, of course, we do still need this guy on his original card, but a lot of people don't like the original card for him because it was like a bit of like an oil painting almost. But we have got Ponda Barber already in the vintage collection. But yeah, maybe to pay homage to that Sears set, you could maybe have all 4 of them. I think that's a pretty good idea. I like it. Paul Robotnik says, question for next week. What is your favourite older Star Wars toy line to collect and why? Thank you for all your great videos. I enjoy watching them all. Thank you for all your great work from a fellow collector and subscriber. Thank you so much for the kind words, Paul. I do really appreciate that. In answer to your question, I think it has to be like the 30th anniversary and the Legacy collection for me. I'm really enjoying going back and getting all those older figures and opening them up for my loose collection. Not really too concerned about having them on card or the value of them or anything like that. I just love the figures. I think there were some great figures in those 2 lines. At that point in time in my life, I was just getting married, buying a house, having my first child, things like that. So collecting for me was on the back burner at that point. So I kind of missed those 2 lines. So yeah, I'd say I'm really enjoying going back to those lines and picking up all those figures that I missed. Resistance X-Wing Pilot says, hey Bossk, question for next week. What's a repaint of an existing vehicle you'd like to see in the vintage collection? I just got the TVC Poe Dameron's X-Wing and I think it's the best Star Wars vehicle they've ever made. I'd love to see it repainted into the white and blue Resistance X-Wing. Yeah, that's a decent shout. It is a very, very good vehicle. I'm personally not too hot on the sequels, although there is some pretty good stuff in there. But I think if I was going to pick something for a repaint, I think it'd have to be the Y-Wing in the original Star Wars A New Hope colours. The one that we've got currently in the vintage collection is on a Return of the Jedi box, and it has like the red markings. I think the yellow one to go with the A New Hope would be pretty awesome. Jeremy Cavallo says, hi Tim, love your stuff. I'm a new collector and a Star Wars fan coming from watching the Clone Wars. Question for next week is, from the Clone Wars, what are the 3 characters you would most want to see in the vintage collection? Yeah, I think that would have to be Cad Bane, Asajj Ventress, and the 332nd Clone Trooper, the Ahsoka Clone Trooper. I mentioned that one quite a lot. It'd be an easy one for them to do. And yeah, it'd be great to have an army of them. Chris Rook says, it's been a while since we've got any news from Hasbro on anything Star Wars. Do you think we'll get any new updates before PulseCon in October? I really don't know, but I certainly hope so. I mean, October the 22nd, it's a long way away. It's, what, over 6 weeks away? And I think the other brands of Hasbro have had plenty of Fan First Tuesdays and Fan First Fridays and all that kind of stuff. I think Marvel have had a couple, Power Rangers, that sort of thing, Transformers. I think it's about time that we had something. So I don't know. I'm thinking maybe PulseCon will be quite a big event and we'll get a lot of stuff previewed that we may be getting next year, which will be pretty cool. But yeah, it would be nice if we were to get another update before then. Horror Fan says, hey Tim, amazing videos always. Question for next week. Even though some people didn't like The Rise of Skywalker, do you think we'll get a Ben Solo since we don't have one in any line so far? So yeah, I don't think it'll be anytime soon that Hasbro produce a vintage collection figure from the new trilogy. That's just my personal opinion. I can't really see it happening with all the new stuff that's coming out. As you say, a lot of people didn't like The Rise of Skywalker and a lot of people don't like The Last Jedi. So, you know, it's much safer for them to bring something out from The Mandalorian or the original trilogy or whatever. However, if I was going to pick a figure from The Rise of Skywalker that I would think that they would probably do, I think it would be Ben Solo. Obviously the main character, and of course I think out of any characters within that film, he's one that people would want. The Modal Nodes, who is a new channel member, so thank you so much for the support, my friend. He says, great videos ever, Tim. Question for next week, do you think Hasbro will give us an Attack of the Clones wave, hopefully with Dooku, for the 20th anniversary next year, or will they stick to new media with all that's coming out? So that was a question that I posed to the Hasbro brand team at the most recent Q&A. It was pretty much exactly that question. You know, I think that obviously with anniversaries, with the Rogue One, they've done okay this year. They've given us a few figures and what have you. And that was only the 5th anniversary. This will be the 20th anniversary of Attack of the Clones. And I think, yeah, we could really do with some figures. However, the answer I got wasn't really overly positive. It didn't seem like they've got anything set in stone that's planned or whatever, but you know, let's hope for at least a couple of figures, right? Because we really haven't got anything from Attack of the Clones since the vintage came back, apart from some repack figures, you know. Steve Martin, hi boss mate, do you think we'll get Blue Leader's Astromech considering we are getting the X-Wing? And do you think we'll get an Imperial Patrol Trooper from Solo in the vintage collection? Keep up the great work. Yeah, so that was actually another question that somebody else asked on the Hasbro brand Q&A. You know, that are we going to be getting the Astromech droid for General Merrick? And I personally think that that was like an afterthought for Hasbro. I don't think they really thought about that at the point. I think it was them just trying to give us Antok Merrick, because a lot of people want that character. And the way to give us Antok Merrick from an affordability point of view was to pack him into a repainted X-Wing, which they've already got the mould for. But now, of course, us being collectors, we're now knocking on the door saying, well, what about the astromech droid to go into that X-Wing? So we haven't had any astromech droids apart from R2-D2 in the vintage collection since it's come back. Of course, we had the power droid and things like that. But in terms of astromechs, he is the only one. So could we possibly see that? Well, I think it's on their minds now at the very least because it's been asked. But in all honesty, I probably think it's unlikely. But it would be a nice touch if they did do that. Marcus says, hi, Tim. Question for next week. Do you think we'll get an update on the Biker Scout in the vintage collection? The helmet needs to be closer to the original. And with the Mandalorian, they could make a clean and dirty version with and without speeder bike. All welcome to me. Cheers from Germany and thank you for your work. Keep it going. Now, Marcus, I'm completely with you that I think that we do need a brand new or all new Biker Scout. This one here from the Vintage Saga collection, you can see my one's going pretty yellow. A lot of those parts were used for the Black Series version, the 3.75 inch Black Series version, which then they repacked as this guy from the Gaming Greats, except of course he's got this new strapping on him and whatever, and he comes with that instead. But that essentially is the Black Series Biker Scout with the corrected shoulder pads there. Now it seems to me that they could have easily, for the 50th anniversary, put him on that card back. That would have been a really easy one for them to do, and they haven't done it. So there might be some other reasons why they didn't do that for this year, but to me, I'm hoping they didn't do that because the plan is eventually to give us an all new one, and as you say, then they could repaint him for the Mandalorian version and things like that. Maybe that's in their plans, I don't know, but certainly I don't think personally that this figure is good enough for a definitive Biker Scout to be put on that card in the vintage collection when they get around to giving us that in the vintage collection. Link 2195 says, hi from El Salvador. Wow, we've got loads of people from all over the world this week. This is great. Love the 3.75 inch figures. Do you think they will or might reissue the vintage collection General Grievous? Glad to have found your videos. I think General Grievous is one that has got a lot of potential to be repacked as like a reissue wave. He, of course, is an expensive figure on the secondary market, but he does fit in that thing of being a main character. They like giving you the main characters. Now, he is, without doubt, one of the main characters from Revenge of the Sith. So I can see them doing that, yeah. Mando Matt says, hi Bossk, nice video as always, but I was wondering how likely we are to get a Phase 1 version of Cody and Rex in the vintage collection, or divisions like the 501st and the 212th. I, for one, would like to see that in the line. Yep, me too. I've grown to love the Phase 1 armour. I was always a Phase 2 man. I preferred that armour, but I do like the Phase 1 armour, and I would like to see them do that. But I think when it comes to the Clone Wars, for figure choices, they may be looking at the later episodes, the more recent episodes. But in terms of the Phase 1 Clone Trooper, I've always been amazed that they never gave us the yellow version of him. I rewatched Attack of the Clones just the other day, and for me, the Clone Trooper that was featured the most, apart from obviously the white one, was the yellow one, the Clone Commander. And I do believe that he has actually been canonised into the Clone Wars as Clone Commander Pons, I think it was. So that for me is an easy one for them to do. It'd just be a repaint of him essentially with the yellow, and he could just be labelled as Clone Commander, or even put Clone Commander Pons, whatever you like. PC says, hi Tim, love the channel. Question for next week. Bossk and Action Force, the Kraken, is there any relationship? They seem kind of similar. I think the only similarity is that they're like scaly type creatures, but I think the Kraken is more of like something that comes out of the water. I think he's got like fins and stuff like that. They do look a bit similar, I must admit, and I think somebody once upon a time actually painted the Bossk figure as the Kraken colours, or the other way round, I can't remember. I'll see if I could dig a picture out and stick it up on the screen for you. Rob Chewbacca says, fun video, Tim. Question, which vintage collection figure has the best accessories in your opinion? Well, without thinking about it too much, the one that always springs to mind is one of the most recent figures, which is the Din Djarin. I mean, you can't really get much better accessories than that, can you? I mean, it's got Baby Yoda for a start, you've got the Kantomo and all the Beskar pieces, and the separate head. Decent accessories to be sure on that one. Possibly if I was thinking about some others, maybe Aura Singh. She came with a lot of accessories as far as I can remember. So yeah, maybe Aura Singh as well. And for the final question of the episode, we have a couple of questions which are very, very similar from D. Thompson. Another great episode, Tim. It's what Sunday evening was made for. Thank you, mate. Question for next week. How many more figures do you think we'll get for the vintage collection? Can you see this line running and running up to maybe 1,000? Cheers, keep on going. Adam Guggenheim says, just as other 3.75 inch Star Wars lines have retired, do you see the end of the vintage collection over time? Now, I think I may have answered this question before in an episode ages and ages and ages ago. I think it's always worth talking about because the figures are numbered. It's a bit of a weird one, isn't it? You do think, where is the end? Could it go on forever? But I think at this moment in time, the vintage collection is like propping up 3.75 inch Star Wars figures. I think the fact that they're on the vintage card back has a very, very great pull for many, many collectors that are just carded collectors. But as well, we have the people that obviously want the figures loose because they like 3.75 inch super articulated figures. So you've got to ask yourself, you know, would a legacy collection line of figures sell as well as the vintage collection? And I think at this moment in time, the answer is no, especially without a Toys R Us and things like that, the lack of retail. I think the vintage collection needs to stick around for the time being. It's propping up the 3.75 inch Star Wars figures for sure. And my fear is that if it went away, then, you know, 3.75 inch would go away as well. So let's keep it going. Let's keep the vintage collection popular. Let's keep banging on to Hasbro about the figures that we want in the vintage collection, and not just the original trilogy, not just the Mandalorian and Rogue One. We want the Clone Wars. We want sequels. People want the sequels, and I'm all for people wanting the sequels on those vintage cards. We want prequels. We want all of the new media. We want all of the new characters from the new media, just like the 6-inch line will get. We want them in 3.75 inch as well. And if it's on vintage cards, then all the better. Alright then guys, thank you so much for watching. If you want to support the channel even further than just watching the videos and hitting the like button, then you can become a channel member or visit my patreon.com and support me that way. Thank you so much to all of my current Patreons and members. I can't thank you enough, and thank you all for watching this video. Don't forget to leave your question for next week's episode, and we shall see you on the next one.